When it comes to client retention, you're either part of the solution or you are the problem. Let's talk about that. Hello, my name is Bill Arnold. I'm president of Prevail Marketing. You may find us at prevailmarketing.com. And every day we try to share with you some thoughts, ideas, strategies, techniques to help you grow your business through better sales and marketing. And for the past 4 sessions or prior to this, we've been talking about client retention and why it's so imperative that companies spend as much time, effort, and talent and money on client retention as they do for client acquisition. In the first session, we talked about the scope of the problem. What is acceptable rate of client churn? Is there an acceptable rate? Does there have to be client churn? Well, there is going to have to be client churn. You're always going to have occasions where the client merges with someone else, they go out of business, or maybe they brought in an executive team that want to use people they used in the prior company. So you're no longer wanted. So there's always going to be some churn that you can't control. But if your churn is over 7%, you have some serious problems, and you need to be looking at solutions we laid out here in the last few sessions. If it's over 10%, you're on your way out of business. You just don't know it yet. So we're going to talk a little bit more about it today. In the second session, we talked about how every department, in fact, every person in every department, has a role to improve client retention. We laid out some details what those roles were. But the rubber hit the road starting in session 3. Because in session 3, we started talking about strategies that every department can take in order to improve client retention. In session 3, we talked about what the marketing department's role was. In fact, the marketing department has an all-encompassing role from cradle to grave in helping every department be better at client retention. In session 4, we talked about what the sales department role would be, because they can't just leave after the product is sold. They got to be part of the keeping that customer happy, engaged, and feel valued so they can get upsells, renewals, and keep clients part of the program. We talked about how the product development team needs to listen to the customer and make sure that they have a program that doesn't destroy the customer's product because they're trying to do upgrades. Enhanced product features that end up coming out and changing the way people do UX UI and changes the way they have to do their workflow. So the customer has to retrain their people without any notice. So the product development team has a role as well. Today, we're going to focus on the operations department. We're going to focus on the C-suite because they have a role. And of course, we're going to talk about the client support team because obviously everyone knows and understands they have a role. But we're going to talk about proactive steps they can be taken, not reactive, not waiting for a complaint to come in and saying, here's how we handle it, but proactively preventing problems, addressing concerns, making the client feel valuable. So let's get to it. What's the operations department's role? Well, operations usually takes over after the sale's done. They often do the onboarding. And the onboarding for many clients may be, not just show them how to use the product, but there may be integrations that have to occur. There may be data that has to be transferred. There maybe have to be changes in the product itself to accommodate workflows or concerns or problems that that particular client has. So the operations department can have a very imperative role. And first touches matter. First impressions matter. It's the first impression they've got with anyone outside of sales. So you need to make sure that's a seamless process that's handed from sales to the operations department. They know exactly what the concerns are, even if they weren't written into the contract. And promises made have to be promises kept. Everything that the sales department promised, the operations department has to deliver on. Timely, accurately, and most of all, transparently. Communication is vital. Clients can be patient. Clients can be understanding if they understand and kept knowledgeable of what's happening. But if you leave them in the dark, they're going to fester. They're going to get angry. And they're going to wonder why they thought you were a good alternative to do business with. The other role that the operations department has to do is measure. Maintain, measure, and improve. They ought to be measuring the performance of customer support response, measuring the performance of other departments, and providing... The operations department needs to be measuring and figuring out the metrics like how quickly customer service responds, how many of the complaints are handled at first touch. All these things have to be measured and shared with each respective department and workflows made and made better to improve. Let's talk about the customer support department. Everyone understands they have the lion's share of responding to complaints. They're responsible for answering questions, finding solutions, resolving complaints, and educating customers. How important are they? Well, a study done in 2019 found that 90% of prospects said they would trust a company that had a high customer experience score. And 64% said that would be a clear indication of whether they want to do business with that company. So if you want to have business with even new prospects, not just keep your current ones, but new prospects, and you have a high client retention score, a high customer experience score, that's going to bring on new customers because they look and they say, look, if you treated them well, if you responded to their concerns, their needs, their problems, and they're happy with you, I'll be happy too. I'm willing to take a chance on you over somebody who may have a lower score. So it's not only just helping you with client retention, it's critical that you get new customers. You'll get new customers if you do it properly. So let's start with the basics. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of companies treat customer support as the unwanted stepchild. Okay, they don't hire the higher caliber people for that job. They hire the people who just quite aren't good enough for sales, may not be good enough for some of these other departments. Well, we can stick them in customer support. They can deal with a customer problem. They can't get in trouble that way. They can fill that role. We can pay them less, and we'll do that. That's a huge mistake. Your customer support team should be paid on par with your customer acquisition team because they're just as important. You want to have the same high caliber and standards you have for a top-notch customer acquisition person as you do for the customer support person. When you hire them, pay attention to their disposition, their attitude. Are they respectful and courteous regardless? Yes, there will be many times that clients are wrong. Many times clients can be rude, but that never gives customer support the right to be that in return. They've always got to be professional. They always got to be positive. They have to have the right attitude. So you hire people for their attitude, their professionalism, pay them what they're worth, and they're worth a lot. What's a client worth? They're worth a lot. Keeping their client is worth a lot. So pay the people who help keep them. Train them. Okay, they're going to be peppers with questions. What if? Can I do that? What ifs? It's not just to train them how the product functions. They need to understand what happens when it breaks, how it can break, how it can optimize it when it breaks, how to optimize it when it's working well. All that's got to be part of their repertoire. They've got to be people who really understand the product as good as product support understands that product. They can't be, hey, I'll just kick it to product, it's product team does it. I can't kick to the product team and say, hey, figure this out. They need to file that up and they need to make sure they have first touch knowledge on how to fix it. Each week, collectively, they all should get together and share the questions that they all received during that week and the responses they gave. The rest of the department should critique the responses. What can be said better? How could it be done better? Take time to listen to these calls. Have these calls recorded. You've all got the things. This call may be recorded for improved customer service, blah, blah, blah. Record the calls and listen to them. You may be shocked at what's being said or what's not known. That could hurt your company because if you call customer support and it takes 1, 2, 3, 4 more times than you expected to get it fixed, man, you're frustrated. You're trying to do business. You don't want a situation where you've got to just sit there and fend for the answers. You want the answers on first touch. So train your people well. Give them support materials. I mean, it's critical that they have materials that they can use. So, they're going to give them a one-pager, the guidance document that addresses 80% of the problems. So if there's a problem, they can say, oh, yes, here's the explanation. They'll explain what the explanation is. And by the way, to help you out, I'm going to send you a one-pager that deals specifically what you're asking about. Boy, you know how a customer is going to feel when they got the explanation, first touch, and then they got a document that substantiates it? They're going to say, wow, these customer support team, they know their stuff. You call them, they have an answer, and they can document it, and they can share it with me. So make sure you create those one-pagers that answers those normal questions. So give them written guidance that they can use without having to check in. So set parameters. Give them authority so they can actually be empowered to make decisions. Sometimes they know in their heart there ought to be some consideration they give that client. I've been calls where Verizon's typically a great one, okay, where, you know what, they had a problem. They severely cost me. They did something wrong. Well, the person I'm talking to is not empowered to say, okay, we're going to clear that expense off. We're going to give you this consideration. They got to go up 3 levels to get that consideration. Now, most people are going to give up and complain and say it's not worth the time and effort. Someone like myself who could be a junkyard dog who's going to stick with it, We'd still be irritated. We're both irritated that it took so long to come to the right conclusion. So empower your people, give them guidelines, and let them operate and make decisions how to help that client. Internal performance reviews. I said before, listen to their calls. Be transparent in these reviews. Listen to these calls and give them positive feedback on what they're doing right. Give them negative feedback and corrections of what they're doing wrong. But when they've done something right, reward good behavior. When a customer person goes beyond the call of duty, resolves a problem that could have resulted in churn, make a meaningful monetary bonus, the size you would pay a salesperson if they landed that major client because they saved that client. If someone who's not a customer support person does something that's outstanding, that saves a client, or helps retain a client, or just does a great act that gave goodwill to a client, reward them with a monetary reward. It's a small amount compared to what it could have been if you lost that client. Remember, teach them that human-to-human connection is important, okay? And I say that because all too often, companies now rely upon chatbots. I dealt with a chatbot the other day that just infuriated me because it didn't understand what I was asking. It didn't give me any option to talk to a person. And I spent 20 minutes arguing with the chatbot, and I lost. Okay, I gave up. I said, fine, I'll go do something else with somebody else. So it's fine. Chatbots are fine for basic questions, but as soon as they can't answer that, or whenever a client wants an option of talking to a person, give them the option. Remove the friction. We remove friction in the sales process, remove friction in the customer support process. If I want to talk to a representative, I should be able to talk to a representative immediately. Okay? And speed to response is important. Some people say, well, speed's not that important. Speed's critical. I was on a call the other day waiting. It was actually Verizon. I get on a call and they say, it'll be 20 minutes before you're next in line. It was actually 40 minutes. Okay? I put the call down and did something else. But how frustrating that was for 20 minutes, particularly playing that obnoxious music in the background? Guys, hire enough staff that you can actually respond on a timely basis. People who have to wait become more and more aggravated. Their problems become bigger and bigger in their minds. And by the time they get to customer support, they're ready just to vomit all over them and complain and make this a bigger deal. And then they go back to their manager and say, these are terrible people. And if they would have responded quickly, accurately, they would have walked back and said just the opposite. These are a great company to deal with. Even that same mistake could have changed everything, just how it was handled. Mistake didn't change. They made a mistake, there was a problem. But how it was resolved, how quickly resolved, whether it was first touch, whether it's done pleasantly, all that matters. Personalize. This is human-to-human contact. Personalize it. Okay, there should always be, if you know the person on the phone, address them by name. Ask how their day's going. They're probably going to say something terrible, or I got this problem. But sometimes it sets them off saying, well, okay, I guess it's okay. I just have this problem to deal with. Personalize it. At the end of every single engagement, personalize it with a follow-up email, offering the customer contact them personally if they have a further problem. They don't have to go wait in line and wait for the problem. They have to go find someone else who's never seen the problem. They don't have to go wait for someone to figure out what's in the CRM about the problem. By the way, if the problem continues or if something else, you know what? Here's my contact information. Feel free to call me directly. What have you done at that point? You created a relationship. The same type of relationship you had in the sales process. You now have a relationship, someone they feel connected to in that customer support department. How important is that? Well, you ask me, how important would that be to know that you can have a contact, an inside person that you can reach out to if you have a problem? You don't have to go wait in a queue. You don't have to go have problems. You can call that person up. Now, you may get the answering machine, but you have an inside connection. You know he's going to call you back on a timely basis. You can send an email. You know he's going to follow up on a timely basis. You know what? That's if people say, well, they might get too busy. That's not a great problem to have, but that's a problem you can deal with. So make sure you have a personalization, remove friction, and remember human-to-human contact is critical. Limit the use of bots. And by all means, let them speak to a person if they want to speak to a person. But customer support, that's all reactive what I'm talking about. That's all after the problem occurred. Oh my goodness, now I got to deal with the problem. If customer support is doing their job properly, they will be proactive. They'll be addressing the client before a problem will arise. How? There's many ways. Each quarter, send out a survey, ask them to share the most pressing issue and concerns. What problems you're having, what concerns you're having. Maybe things they haven't really addressed yet, they haven't brought up to customer support because I don't want to waste the time on that. They're not going to do anything. Oh, you want to know what problems I have? Here's 4 or 5 things that are a problem. The UX UI is terrible, or this workflow doesn't work well. Whatever the case may be. I can't download the file when you says I could download, but I never bother you because I found a workaround. Send out a survey asking them to share their most pressing issue and concerns. Then address them. Conduct a town hall meeting to address how those issues and concerns are being addressed. Write it up to them. Send them responses. Show them that you're being listened to. Provide feedback to every one of those departments so the issues are addressed. That's a simple way that customer support can be proactive, find the problems out before they become critical, and become heroes instead of the villains. Finally, let's talk about the department, if you will, not really a department, that has the most impact, is the most important as far as I'm concerned about client retention, the C-suite. Now, the C-suite involves a number of different disciplines. Some we've talked about: Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Sales Officer, we talked about them, Chief Revenue Officer, Chief Operations Officer, we talked about Operations Department. They're all part of it. But even the CEO, the CFO, Chief Revenue Officer, all those have a strategic role to play. And I'm not talking about just setting the tone of saying, hey, support's important to us. We got to do better, okay? So it's got to be something where you really recognize, the company recognize. So what you need to do is give customer support a seat at the table. What do I mean by that? If you have a chief marketing officer, why? Because marketing is important. You need to get these people to sales to lead, the opportunities to sales. We have a vice president of sales or chief revenue officer. Why? Because sales is important. We recognize that. We want a leader up there who can report right to the CEO, and the whole company understands the importance of these 2 departments. Well, customer support needs a seat at the table. Customer support department, chief customer experience officer, or vice president of customer support needs to be part of that C-suite. This will send a strong message to every single one of the employees that's of equal importance as client acquisition. Remember that compensation drives behavior. C-suite needs to recognize this. And I say that in 2 areas when it talks to client retention. You want your sales department to keep in contact, to keep engaged, to keep involved with their customer that you brought on. Why? Because they built that relationship of trust. And now just to throw it away and let it go, that's foolish. That's bad business. So, but the sales department's not going to keep in touch because they're not being compensated for it. So what you need to do is find a way to reward the sales department to keep involved, to keep engaged, to have monthly follow-ups, monthly conversations. What's going to happen? Well, one, the client's going to stay retained because they feel that relationship. They know they've got someone who they learn to trust, that they can talk to. Maybe they can be the interface for the rest of the departments. But when it comes to upsells, it's much natural. If you're calling them every month anyhow, just checking in on them. Oh, by the way, you know what? We have a new feature here you might be interested in. It's a natural progression. It's not a sales call. It's just a monthly follow-up. And oh, by the way, when it comes to renewals, oh, by the way, your contract's up next week. Can we get you on board? So, it's natural. It's going to help the whole process. Reward financially customer support for being proactive. Reward them for doing great things that save a company, that save a client. Compensation drives behavior. If you're not compensating for people to do what you need them to do, they're not going to do it. They're only going to do what you're paying them to do. If you're paying customer support to be reactive, they're going to be reactive. Paying sales just to do sales, they're just going to do sales. You need to compensate them the right way. Direct engagements. In small and medium-sized businesses, CEOs get this. They have no choice. There are not enough people in the company that they cannot not be directly engaged. They've got to deal with our customers both at the acquisition and support stages because they're a small company. But traditionally, as companies grow and get bigger, the CEO and the rest of the C-suite becomes disengaged. They don't really get involved with a day-to-day basis with customers. In fact, up until probably about 2010, it was the standard that all CEOs were basically on this ivory tower, and only the best of the best customers. Only if there was a potential loss that was so great would the CEO get involved. By then, it's usually too late. So by 2015, companies were starting to understand that they needed to get engaged either on the website with videos or in social media. Now you've got people from Richard Branson to Jeff Bezos to Elon Musk, all with their own unique ways of interface with customers, but they interface on a regular basis. You need to interface with your customers. Pick your channel. Maybe you are really good on sending out tweets, or I guess they're not posts. You can use Blue Sky, Threads, or X. Maybe you like the live video format, the short form format. Use Spaces, Reels, or TikTok. Maybe you like to use long form videos. Maybe you like to have events and meetings and webinars. But in any event, schedule regular interactions with your customers where they see the face, they hear the tenor, they hear the voice, they feel the presence of the C-suite, particularly the CEO. I reported in one of the earlier conversations, imagine getting a call. You're the middle management for a company, and you just had a problem with customer support dealt with. Imagine you get a call from the CEO of that company, just checking in and making sure that it was handled properly, that they're satisfied. By the way, any feedback you want to give about the product. Imagine getting that call from the CEO of a company. Wow. What's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to tell everybody you work with, I just got a call from the CEO who was interested in what happened. Wow, that's a great company. That's the kind of stuff CEOs can do, C-suite can do, is interact in that form or fashion directly with the customer. It's going to impact their belief and feeling about you. It's going to be likely that they want to stick around. If problems do arise, it's going to be tempered by the fact that they have a relationship. They feel that you care about them. You're not just another company, but you care about them. I've been with organizations where the CEO wouldn't get involved when there's a problem. He wanted to hide, put his head in the sand, pretend he was an ostrich. It doesn't work. It just costs you business. It costs you profitability, and it costs you growth. So we've had 5 sessions here where we've talked about client retention. I hope I've impacted and the importance of really implementing some of these plans. If there are problems we didn't address, we might have other sessions in the future about this. But if you want to know more, we've got blogs written about it. Contact us. I promise you we'll answer the phone, we'll answer your emails, and we'll even answer the form you fill out. You're not going to find a bot on our site because I haven't found one I like yet. So we will give you that human-to-human interaction at the acquisition stage, customer support stage, and even when you're just a person contacting us have a question. Glad we wish we could talk to you. We're hoping to talk to you. So thank you for being here. You could be anywhere else, but you've been here. We appreciate that. And until tomorrow, have a great day.